The kingdom of Andaraka was a land where the earth hummed with the pulse of its people. Beneath the watchful gaze of the mountains the kingdom flourished, ruled by Chief Kamau, a man of great wisdom and fairness. His voice was a steady current that calmed the storms of his people's hearts. He did not rule with iron hands, but with the gentleness of a river shaping its banks. The people of Andaraka respected him deeply, and in return they were blessed. The ancestral spirits, guardians of all that was sacred, walked with the people, guiding them through both joy and sorrow, ensuring peace and harmony. The Council of Elders, seasoned by age and experience, upheld the traditions passed down through generations. They were the keepers of stories, the ones who ensured that the old ways were never forgotten, for it was these traditions that bound the kingdom together. The people believed that by honoring the ancestral spirits, they could walk in the light, avoiding the darkness that came from dishonoring the past. Andaraka was a land steeped in order, where all things had their place, and every child knew the weight of their legacy. Abasi, the only son of Chief Kamau, was born into the kingdom's legacy. His destiny was written in the stars, or so he was told. But where his father saw wisdom, Abasi saw weakness. Where his father saw patience, Abasi saw delay. Abasi was young, with the fire of ambition burning brightly in his chest. Unlike Chief Kamau, who believed that true strength came from wisdom and service, Abasi believed that only power could shape the world. To him, the old ways were a chain, holding back the future, and he longed to break free. Chief Kamau, ever watchful, noticed the growing restlessness in his son. He had seen the spark of greatness in Abasi, but he also saw the danger in his ambition. One day, under the great baobab tree where the elders often gathered, Chief Kamau called for his son. "Abasi," he said, his voice low but firm, "the people's loyalty is earned, not taken. A true leader does not seek power for himself. He seeks to serve his people, to carry their burdens and lift their spirits. Wisdom comes with time, not through haste. Power taken without understanding is like fire in the forest. It may burn brightly, but it will consume everything in its path." Abasi's gaze hardened, the fire of defiance smoldering in his eyes. "Father," he said, his voice sharp, "you speak of patience, but patience is for those who are content to live in the shadows. I want to walk in the light, to command the winds, to bend the earth to my will. The people will follow me not because I serve them, but because I rule them." Chief Kamau's face softened with the weight of his son's words, but his eyes were filled with sorrow. "Remember, Abasi, the greatest leaders are those who walk in the light of the spirits, not those who seek the darkness of power." But Abasi did not listen. The weight of his father's words was too heavy for him to bear, and he turned away, his mind already filled with thoughts of something greater. There were whispers in the wind, carried on the breath of the trees, whispers that spoke of an ancient ritual. It was said that under the obsidian moon, the night when the moon was swallowed by darkness, there was a way to gain power beyond imagining. The ritual of the obsidian moon. It was a forbidden rite, one that had been lost to time, but the legends told of those who had sought it out in times long past, leaders who had bent the world to their will, only to lose themselves in the process. Abasi heard these whispers. He heard them clearly, and they called to him. To him, the promise of power was too great to ignore. He knew the cost of such a power. It was a well-worn tale told by the elders, but what were stories but warnings, meant to be broken? The hunger in Abasi's chest grew, gnawing at him until it became an obsession. He would not wait. He would seize his destiny, no matter the price. The elders, seeing the fire in his eyes, spoke once more, their voices filled with warning. "Abasi," they said, their voices like the rustling of leaves in the wind. "There are paths that should not be walked, even by the greatest of men. The ritual of the obsidian moon is not meant for the living. Those who seek it will find only shadows and sorrow. Beware, for the price of power is a debt that the soul cannot repay." But Abasi did not heed their words. His mind was made. The path to power was clear, and he would walk it alone. The night of the obsidian moon drew closer, and with it, his resolve hardened. In the heart of the village there was a woman whose sight had been taken by the spirits long ago. Mama Nyoka, the village seer, was a woman of great wisdom, her bones bent by the years, but her mind as sharp as the thorns of the thorn bush. She had seen many things in her time, and she sensed the storm brewing in Abasi's heart. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she called for him. "Abasi," she said, her voice a whisper carried on the wind, "you are a child of the spirits, but you are not yet ready for what you seek. Power taken without honor turns light to shadow. Beware, son of Indaraka, lest your hunger devour. You, the spirits watch, and they know the hearts of men." Abasi stood before her, his face a mask of impatience. "Mama Nyoka, your words are those of fear. The spirits have nothing to teach me. I am destined for greatness, and I will not let your words stand in my way." Mama Nyoka's eyes, clouded by years and loss, held a sorrowful wisdom. "You seek greatness, but you do not understand the cost. The shadows you walk toward will consume you, and you will never return. You may become great, but you will lose yourself in the process." Abasi scoffed. "I will take my chances. A man who fears the future will never find it. I will walk the path that others dare not." And so, with the blessings of neither his father nor the elders, Abasi turned his back on the kingdom's traditions and made his way toward the forbidden grove. Beneath the moonlit sky, he vowed to take his destiny into his own hands. But little did he know, the choices he had made were already setting a dark fate into motion, one that would shape the future of Indaraka and leave a legacy far darker than any king had ever known. Abasi had always been a man of action, driven by a hunger that consumed him from the inside. The kingdom of Indaraka, with its ancient rules and slow-moving ways, could no longer contain the fire burning in his heart. So, on a night when the moon hid behind thick clouds, he ventured beyond the familiar boundaries of the village, where only the desperate and the exiled dared to tread. The path was narrow, winding through thick trees that seemed to whisper warnings in the wind. In the distance, a flickering light danced like a star, casting long shadows across the ground. As Abasi approached, he saw the figure of a man, hunched and cloaked, sitting by a fire that crackled ominously in the dark. This was Ekwu, the outcast, the man whose name was spoken only in fear. He was a hermit, cast out from the village years, ego for his forbidden ways. Whispers of his dealings with dark powers had spread like wildfire through the village, and his name was a warning to all. But Abasi, driven by his insatiable thirst for power, sought him out. He knew that the kingdom's wisdom would never satisfy his hunger. He needed something more. Ekwu's eyes gleamed in the firelight, and a smile flickered across his lips as he spoke. "Ah, the prince comes to me in the shadows. I knew you would come, Abasi. You seek power, don't you? Power that none in Indaraka could ever give you." Abasi's heart raced, and his voice was low, yet firm. "I seek strength. I want to rule, to bend the world to my will." Ekwu chuckled, his laugh dry as old leaves. "Strength? You want strength, but not the kind that comes from wisdom. You want power that the gods themselves fear. I know of such a power, one that could make you stronger than your father, stronger than all the elders combined." Abasi leaned forward, his eyes burning with the need for greatness. "Tell me," he demanded, "what is this power? Where can I find it?" Ekwu's smile deepened, and he gestured to the darkness around them. "It is called the ritual of the obsidian moon. It is ancient, older than any king, older than any kingdom. It is a power beyond kings, a power that comes only once every generation, and only to those brave enough to claim it. Abasi's pulse quickened. This was what he had been searching for, a way to rise above his father's shadow. But Ekwu's voice became somber as he spoke again. The price, young prince, is not a small one. Every great gift demands a greater sacrifice. This power, once gained, will change you. It will shape you into something more, something beyond human. But be warned, for the power you seek is not free. It will take something precious from you. Abasi's eyes burned with ambition, and he hardly heard the ominous undertones in Ekwu's words. His mind was already filled with visions of power, of a kingdom bending to his will, of his name echoing in every corner of the land. "I'll pay any price," Abasi declared, his voice steady. "Tell me where I must go." Ekwu nodded, his face growing serious. "You must go to Eclipse Grove, deep in the Forbidden Forest. It is a place where the living and the dead walk together, where the air is thick with the whispers of spirits. Many have entered the grove, but none have returned the same. It is a place that the villagers fear, and rightly so." Abasi's heart thundered in his chest. The Forbidden Forest. He had heard the stories, of course. Old men in the village spoke of it in hushed tones. They said the grove was a place where the dead lingered, where their voices could be heard if one listened carefully enough. Some said that men who entered the grove came back changed, touched by something ancient and dangerous. But Abasi was not afraid. He was driven by the need for power. "I will go," he said. "I will enter the grove, and I will perform the ritual. I will take what is mine." Ekwu studied him closely, his eyes narrowing. "Very well, but be warned. The forest is not kind. It tests the soul. No man who enters it comes back without losing a part of himself. And the ritual is not something to be taken lightly. It will require an offering, something deeply connected to your soul." Abasi's heart raced, but he didn't hesitate. "An offering? What kind of offering?" Ekwu's gaze darkened, and he leaned in closer to Abasi. "I cannot tell you that. It is not for me to say. The ritual will show you what must be offered, but beware, the cost will not be easy to bear. The power you seek comes with a price that no man can truly understand until it is too late." Abasi's mind was already made up. He had heard the warnings, but they no longer mattered. He had tasted the bitterness of his father's wisdom and found it lacking. This power would make him unstoppable. No price, no matter how great, could stand in his way. "I will risk it," Abasi said, his voice full of resolve. "No price is too high for power. I will take what is mine, and I will be the greatest king Andaraka has ever known." Ekwu studied him one last time, then stood, his movements slow and deliberate. "Then go, young prince. Enter the Forbidden Forest. Claim your destiny, but remember my words. The power you seek will change you, and the price will be more than you can bear." With those words, Ekwu turned and walked into the darkness, leaving Abasi alone by the fire. The weight of what he had agreed to hung heavily on his shoulders, but his desire for power overshadowed everything else. He knew the path ahead would be difficult, but he was willing to sacrifice anything, even a part of himself, to claim what he believed was rightfully his. And so, with the promise of greatness burning in his chest, Abasi set his course for the Forbidden Forest, unaware that the true cost of the ritual would soon begin to unfold, shaping not just his future, but the very heart of Andaraka itself. Abasi's footsteps echoed through the dense forest, the path before him winding and treacherous. The thick air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and ancient trees whose gnarled branches twisted like the fingers of forgotten spirits. As he walked, the whispers of his ancestors floated around him, warning him of the dangers that lay ahead. Abasi, a voice like wind through leaves, seemed to call, though no one was near. Do not walk this path. The land is cursed, the grove a place where shadows linger long after the sun has set. The voice faded, and another followed. The obsidian altar holds power, but power comes at a price. Turn back, Abasi. Your heart is not yet ready. He shook his head, his jaw set with determination. The village elders had warned him, yes, but Abasi had no time for superstition. He was driven by a desire for greatness that burned within him like a fire. The whispers were nothing more than the fears of old people who had never dared to seek their own fortune. The trees seemed to press in around him as he ventured deeper, the weight of the forest heavy on his shoulders. The darkness thickened with each step until, at last, he came to a clearing. There, bathed in an eerie glow, stood the obsidian altar. The moon, darkened by an unseen shadow, hung like a cold eye in the sky, casting no light upon the altar below. Abasi felt his heart race as he approached, the ancient stones of the altar cool beneath his fingers. They were marked with carvings worn by time, each one a story of those who had come before him, seeking the same power. The air around him hummed with a strange energy, like the buzz of an insect too close to the ear. His hands trembled, but it was not from fear. No, Abasi was not afraid. His hands shook with the weight of the moment, the weight of his own ambition. He reached into his satchel, his fingers brushing the smooth surface of the Eye of Olorun. The artifact was small, but it burned with a light that seemed to pulse with life. He had studied its power in secret, learning the ancient incantations that could unlock the hidden forces of the world. Today, he would prove himself worthy. Ctitz. Abasi placed the eye upon the altar. He inhaled deeply. The ritual had begun. The wind shifted, and a low murmur filled the air. At first, it was nothing more than the rustling of leaves, but soon the murmurs grew louder, rising like a chorus of voices from the depths of the earth. Abasi, the voices whispered, you seek power, but do you understand the price? The ground beneath him trembled, and out of the shadows figures began to materialize. They were like smoke, shifting and swirling in the night air, their forms both human and ethereal, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Abasi's breath caught in his throat, but he did not flinch. These were the spirits of the grove, the ancient guardians who held dominion over the forces of the earth and sky. Their presence was overwhelming, their power undeniable. They watched, him with silent, knowing eyes. I seek power, Abasi said, his voice steady despite the fear that clawed at his chest. Give me the strength to become greater than any man before me. One of the spirits, an elder whose face was a mask of bone and shadow, stepped forward. You desire strength, but know this. Strength comes at a cost. To wield the power of the spirits, you must give up what is most precious to you. Abasi's pulse quickened, his mind racing. I will pay any price. The spirit's laughter was like the sound of chains dragging across stone. Very well. If you seek power, you must give up your sight. Your eyes will no longer see the world of the living. In exchange, you will gain strength beyond mortal measure. Abasi hesitated, the weight of the decision settling upon him like a heavy stone. The offer was tempting, more tempting than anything he had ever felt before. But blindness? What was blindness compared to the strength he could wield? I accept, he said, his voice firm despite the nagging voice inside him that screamed for him to turn back. The spirits laughed again, a sound like 1,000 voices echoing in the wind. Their laughter was both mocking and sorrowful, as though they already knew the fate that awaited him. The air around Abasi thickened. He felt the ground beneath his feet shift, the sky above darken further. The ritual was nearing its end. Abbasi could feel the power coursing through him, his body trembling with the surge of energy. His vision blurred, his eyes growing heavy, but he forced himself to remain standing. And then, in the blink of an eye, it was done. The ritual was complete. Abbasi opened his eyes and saw nothing. A wave of panic washed over him as he reached out, his hands trembling, but all he could feel was the cold air of the grove. His vision, once so clear and sharp, was now gone, swallowed by the darkness. But then, something changed. The air around him seemed to come alive. He could feel the pulse of the world, hear the beating hearts of every creature in the grove. His senses expanded, far beyond the limits of a mere mortal. His strength was immense, overwhelming. He could feel the earth beneath him, the trees around him, the very air itself vibrating with the energy he now possessed. But there was a terrible price. As the seconds passed, the truth became clear. Abbasi tried to step forward, but his feet seemed to move in the wrong direction. He reached out and touched nothing, his body swaying as though caught in a storm. His soul, he realized with dawning horror, was no longer part of the mortal realm. It was bound to the shadows, lost to the darkness forever. He was trapped. He could hear the spirit's laughter once more, the sound like 1,000 chains dragging across the earth. But it was no longer filled with mockery. Now it was filled with sorrow. "The power you sought has claimed you, Abbasi," the spirit whispered. "You have become a creature of the darkness, a soul bound to this cursed place for all eternity. No strength, no sight will ever free you." Abbasi's heart sank as he realized the full cost of his decision. He had traded his future for power, but now he was nothing more than a shadow, a creature lost in the void. And as the wind howled through the trees, Abbasi understood the true meaning of the elders' warnings. Power, when sought without wisdom, brings nothing but ruin. The darkness closed in, and Abbasi, once a man, was no more. Abbasi stumbled through the darkness, his once proud steps now unsteady. His body, once tall and strong, felt heavy and foreign to him. The weight of his choices pressed down on him like a stone, and the earth beneath his feet seemed to shake with each step. The night was thick with silence, but within his mind the echoes of the ritual, of the power he had claimed, howled like a storm. As he reached the village gates, the familiar sight of Ndaraka should have comforted him, but instead it repulsed him. He staggered forward, only to find the villagers watching from their doorways, their faces twisted with fear. The children cowered behind their mothers, their wide eyes fixed on him as if he were some great beast from the stories. Abbasi reached out, his voice hoarse. "It is I. Abbasi, I have returned." But no one moved. They only stared. His hands trembled as he touched his face, searching for the familiar features of his youth. His fingers found nothing but smooth, cold skin. He dared not look into the reflection of the moon, but he could feel the black voids where his eyes should have been, endless and empty. His eyes, his once shining eyes, were gone, replaced by deep, hollow pits that seemed to weep shadows. The whispers began immediately, swirling around him like a storm. "He is no longer one of us," one woman whispered, her voice barely audible. "He walks with the spirits now." Abbasi stood there, frozen, as the villagers recoiled from him. The words, cut deeper than any physical wound. How had this happened? What had he become? He had sought power, but in return the power had consumed him, leaving nothing behind but a shadow of his former self. And indeed, Abbasi's shadow moved unnaturally. It twisted and writhed, not like a man's shadow, but like something alive. Something that belonged to a creature far darker than any man. It stretched along the ground like a serpent, reaching out and then recoiling, as if it had a life of its own. The villagers, their faces pale with terror, muttered under their breath, "He is cursed, a warning from the gods." Abbasi could not understand it. The power he had so eagerly sought now seemed like a cruel joke. It was not strength. It was, a curse. His own shadow, no longer tethered to him, had become an extension of the darkness that had consumed him. From the corner of his eye, Abbasi saw a figure approach. It was his father, Chief Kamau, the great leader of Indaraka, the man who had raised him, the one who had once believed that his son would carry on his legacy. But now, as Kamau drew near, there was no pride in his eyes, only sorrow. "My son," Chief Kamau's voice trembled, "I gave you wisdom, but you chose impatience. Now you have lost everything." Abbasi's heart broke as his father spoke. This was the man who had taught him that true power came from service, from earning the love and respect of the people. But Abbasi had not listened. He had sought power on his own terms, and now he was paying the price. His father's words were like a knife twisting in his chest. Behind him, the council of elders had gathered, their faces heavy with disappointment. Their eyes were filled with grief, not anger, for the boy they had once believed in had become a shadow of himself. The weight of their disapproval crushed Abbasi's spirit. His people, his family, no longer recognized him. They saw him for what he had become. A warning. In the distance, a voice, soft, almost a whisper, cut through the silence. It was Mama Nyoka, the blind seer. She had been absent since the day Abbasi had first sought the forbidden power, but now she emerged from the shadows, her presence like a ghost in the wind. Her face was hidden, but her voice carried the weight of ages. "You sought power beyond your station," she said, her voice like a soft murmur that echoed in the hollow of his heart. "Now, you will wander forever, blind yet aware of all things, unseen." Abbasi's heart trembled as her words washed over him. The truth of her warning, once dismissed as the ramblings of an old woman, was now undeniable. The power he had sought had taken more than his sight. It had taken his soul, and now, as he wandered through the world, he would see all that was hidden, but never again would he see the faces of those he had once loved. The villagers, once his people, now turned their backs on him. They whispered amongst themselves. "He has become a man of the shadows," they said. "A living tale of caution." Abbasi's breath caught in his throat. Even Tunde, his dearest friend, the one who had stood by him through every trial, now avoided his gaze. Tunde's heart was heavy with betrayal. He had seen what Abbasi had become, and he no longer knew the man before him. The weight of the world seemed to fall upon Abbasi. He had been a prince, a leader, but now he was nothing, a shadow among shadows. His father's voice broke through, his thoughts deep and commanding. "A chief must lead with wisdom, not greed," Chief Kamau said, his voice like thunder in the night. "My son is no longer among the living. His name will be erased from the kingdom's history." And with those words, the final blow fell. Abbasi was exiled. His name struck from the records, never to be spoken of again. He was no longer a son, no longer a prince. He was nothing. The kingdom of Indaraka would never know his name, and the land would heal in his absence. Abbasi stood there in silence, his heart heavy with the truth of his fate. The curse had taken everything, his sight, his place, his family, and now he would walk alone, his shadow a constant reminder of the price of ambition. The stories would be told, of course. The tale of Abbasi, the prince who sought power beyond his station, would be passed down through generations. Children would hear it, and mothers would warn them of the dangers of blind ambition. Abbasi's name, though forgotten by all who once knew him, would live on as a legend of a man who, in his hunger for power, lost everything, And so, Abasi disappeared into the wilderness, a shadow among shadows. He saw nothing, yet felt everything: the winds, the voices of the spirits, the weight of his own sins. Forever wandering, a man without a place. Many moons have passed since Abasi vanished into the wilderness, but the winds still carry whispers of his fate. Travelers, journeying through the land, speak of a figure who haunts the paths between the living and the dead. Some say he is a blind man, walking in silence, neither dead nor alive, his footsteps soft but steady. His face is said to be hidden in shadow, and his eyes, though empty, seem to hold the weight of all things unseen. His presence lingers in the air, felt but never seen, as if the land itself remembers the man who sought power at the cost of his soul. When the winds blow fierce and the moon hides behind clouds, the elders say that Abasi's spirit wanders between the worlds, forever caught in the cycle of his own ambition. He is a ghost, not of death, but of consequence. A reminder to all who listen that the price of arrogance is steep, and that the thirst for power can rob a man of everything. Some even say that Abasi has become a guide for wandering spirits, leading them to the final rest they seek. They claim that his shadow stretches across the land, not to haunt, but to warn. It is said that those who dare to claim power without humility, those who reach for what is not theirs, will see the twisted shadow of Abasi before them, a silent warning of the price they must pay. And yet some believe his punishment is worse than death. It is an existence without belonging, not a ghost, not a man, but something in between. No place to call home, no one to call kin. Abasi walks alone, a shadow among shadows, neither forgotten nor at peace. He is neither punished by the gods nor accepted into the ancestors' fold. His is a fate where time is endless, and his soul is lost in the space between the living and the dead. Around the fire the elders gather, passing the story of Abasi from one generation to the next. They speak of him with solemn faces, their voices heavy with the lessons of the past. A throne, stolen in darkness, they say, will never know the light. The children listen wide-eyed as the elders weave the tale, knowing that ambition without wisdom leads only to ruin. They are taught that it is not the throne one claims, but the heart that leads, that truly matters. The elders speak, their words echoing in the night, carrying the weight of the generations that came before. The throne is not a thing to be taken, but a responsibility to be earned. And power is a servant, not a master. The story of Abasi is a lesson, etched into the hearts of all who hear it. It is a final proverb, passed down like a seed planted deep within the soil. The man who drinks from a river before its time will find only sand in his throat. The message is clear. Patience, wisdom, and humility are the true path of a leader. Abasi's fall serves as a stark reminder that a man who seeks greatness without these virtues will always find emptiness in the end. The story of Abasi. Once, a man with the world at his feet is now a legend, a cautionary tale for generations to come. His shadow walks not in anger but in silence, carrying the weight of his choices, ensuring that none will forget the lesson he learned too late. His name lives on, not as a hero to be admired, but as a warning, a lesson carved into the memory of the people. And so, the tale of Abasi is passed from one tongue to the next, from one heart to another. His story is not one of glory, but of the cost of ambition unchecked. His shadow remains a constant reminder that the path to power is fraught with danger, and only those who walk with wisdom and humility will truly see the light. Abasi's heart burned with a hunger that could not be quenched. He sought power as a lion seeks the sun, relentless, blind to everything but the promise of strength. In his search he became deaf to the wisdom of the elders, blind to the warnings of his ancestors. With every step he grew more powerful, but with each moment he lost more of his soul. Strength without wisdom, they say, is a curse that devours the very essence of a man. Abbasi's eyes, once bright with the spark of life, were now dark, hollow pits. He had gained the world's might, but lost the light to see it. His story would become a bitter lesson for those who chase greatness without patience, for power taken too soon will always lead to destruction. When he turned his back on his people, Abbasi believed he had found a new path, one paved with power and prestige. But in doing so, he betrayed everything he had been taught, his ancestors, his kingdom, and his very blood. His exile was not just the parting of flesh and land, but the tearing of his spirit from the very roots of his being. A man who forsakes his people, who dishonors his heritage, will find himself a wanderer in a world that no longer recognizes him. His name was erased, and with it, the warmth of kinship. Abbasi stood alone, no longer part of the family he had once known. No place, no home, no name. His betrayal was not just against those who loved him, but against the very fabric of existence. Without a people, a man is nothing but dust. The spirits of his ancestors watched from the realms beyond, their eyes heavy with sorrow. They had warned him, had whispered their wisdom to his soul, but he had refused to listen. The power he took came at a price, and now the spirits were coming to collect. Fate is never to be tricked, nor can its price be bargained. Abbasi thought he could avoid the consequences, but the spirits, timeless and true, always take their due. They are patient, waiting for the right moment to remind the living that no one escapes the cost of their actions. Abbasi's punishment was not cruel, it was simply inevitable. He had promised the spirits his soul when he sought power in darkness, and they had come to claim what was owed. Abbasi's blindness was more than a mere affliction of the eyes. It was the very embodiment of his reckless ambition. The darkness that followed him now was not just a curse of sight, but a shadow that clung to him, trapping him in the very greed he had once embraced. His body wandered the earth, but his spirit was chained, forever lost in the shadows. Those who seek power dishonorably are forever bound by the darkness they choose, and Abbasi's journey would be a warning to those who came after him. No matter how far one may run, no matter how high one may rise, the shadows will always follow and they will never let go.